As the challenge for the day to look at how we can develop synergies and what are the barriers maybe that we're going to have to overcome in order to do that. So we move now to our keynote speaker for this morning, as I said, Philippe van Parijs, who I think will be giving us food for thought for the day. Thank you, Philippe.
Madame la Présidente, Monsieur le Commissaire, ladies and gentlemen, let me say straight away that I'm both surprised and not so surprised to be here today. I'm not totally surprised because 18 years ago, in 1991, I published two books, one under the title Qu'est-ce qu'une société juste? What is a just society? And the other one, a collective volume under the title La pensée écologiste, ecological thought, subtitle, an inventory for the benefit of those who practice it and for those who fear it. I have been interested for over 2 decades in both social justice and ecology, and hence I must presumably have given some thought to their connection. Not surprising, you might therefore think, to find me here. And yet, it is surprising, for what use could make a respectable institution such as the European Commission of a philosopher, that is, of someone who is of necessity a professional non-expert? Perhaps the reason is that one of the highly cultured members of this institution could still remember Condorcet, the Marquis de Condorcet's famous pronouncement that any society not enlightened by philosophers will be cheated by charlatans. And what holds for a society may also hold for such a sui generis entity as the European Union. Or perhaps someone perceived the need to zoom out from time to time, to look up now from time to time, and to take a broader view. Fine, I shall try to do that, but I'm one of those philosophers who believe that it is important not only to look up, but also to check where you put your feet. If you don't do so, you risk tripping, you risk tumbling, and this is one reason why I attended with great attention and with great interest most of yesterday's expert meeting, and I shall frequently refer to it, be it implicitly, in what I shall have to say today. What I shall do is answer 2 simple questions. 1, what is the problem? And 2, what is the solution? My reply to the first question will consist in some reflections on the 2 expressions that feature in the title of this conference and on their relationship: social fairness, sustainable development. My reply to the second question, what is the solution, will consist in some reflections around what is probably the most classic of all the slogans of the ecological movement: think globally, act locally. What is the problem? Is there a conflict necessary or contingent between social Europe and green Europe, between social fairness and sustainable development? Or is there, on the contrary, a natural alliance necessary or contingent between these 2 objectives? Both views were defended, presented yesterday, expressed by participants in the expert meeting. Who is right? To answer that question, a little bit of conceptual tidying up is required on both sides of this putative tension. First, sustainable development, green Europe. Is that really what we want? I'm sure I'm not the only person in this room to find this expression, sustainable development, to find this expression sloppy, seriously misleading to capture our environmental concerns. Sustainable development is no doubt better than development tout court, and development tout court is certainly better than growth. But is our objective really an expansion that can be sustained forever? Sustainability, I submit, is essential, but development is not. What we are really after, I propose, is a way of living that is sustainably generalizable. A way of living that is sustainably generalizable. Generalizable, that means that it must be such that it can be adopted across the globe. Sustainably means that it can be perpetuated across generations. And a way of living must be understood in a comprehensive way, not just the standard of living, the level of real income, but must also be characterized as a way of producing, of consuming, of commuting, of building, of cohabiting, of holidaying, of procreating, etc. And it must, of course, also be characterized in a flexible way that doesn't assume that everyone must end up with the same consumption bubble, with the same type of flat, at the same distance from the same type of work, let alone with the same number of children or the same sort of husband or wife. But the conditions of sustainable generalizability will impose limits on this variation, on this flexibility. Let's now turn to the other term of the potential tension, social fairness, social Europe. Is there also some conceptual straightening needed here? Certainly. And this was stressed, perhaps with greatest force yesterday, by Andreas Kremer from Berlin. The key point is that today, when talking about justice, about fairness, we cannot talk exclusively, not even primarily, about social solidarity or social inclusion at the level of each of our societies. But we must move straight away to the issue of global justice. The challenge of climate change, the worldwide pressure of migration, the rapid and massive worldwide impact of the US financial crisis, the unprecedented communicational interconnectedness generated by the World Wide Web, all this makes it necessary, indeed increasingly self-evident, to frame the problem of justice at a global level. This does not mean that the nation states, that the national welfare states have no role left to play, but only that one must reverse the traditional way of thinking about justice. No longer first justice within a nation and then justice between nations, but first ask what justice requires between all members of mankind, and then ask, on this background, at what level the various policy instruments must be located from the municipal to the global, without forgetting the increasingly important intermediate level of sui generis political entities such as the European Union. What must then be the content of global justice? Let me just state, this is of course a very big question, which philosophers have spent much time in recent years. Let me just state very dogmatically my own conviction that the demands of global justice are simply a worldwide blow-up of the conception that plausibly captures